Hello everyone, this is the fifth video in the Python beginner series, and today we will be talking about another Python data type, that is tuples. So we will learn about, in this video we will learn about tuples and how to create them, different methods of creating tuples, how a tuple is different from a list, and what are the similarities between the tuples and the list. So starting with the basic definition of tuple. So a tuple is basically a sequence data type in Python that stores multiple values separated by a comma. So in a tuple, each element is basically separated by a comma. We depict a tuple by round brackets. For example, if I have to create a tuple t, I can simply put parentheses, that is round bracket, and inside it give my element separated by comma. So here, if I print the value of t, here we can see that we have created a tuple with three elements as 1, 3, and 4 and separated by comma. Now, it is not necessary that all the elements of the tuple are of same data type. As we used to do in list, we can similarly do similar thing here, that we can use or we can store multiple types of elements in the tuple. For example, if I create a tuple t1 here with different types of elements, let's just have some random element. The first one is an integer, let the second one be float, and let us just include a string, and last we will just include a keyword. Now if we print the value of t1, here we can see that we have got a tuple with four values. The first one is an integer, the second one is a decimal value or a float value, the third one is a string, and the fourth one is a true, that is a special literal in Python, or we can say it is also a keyword. So this is the way that we can create tuples. So let's just for a practice create one another tuple, that is a tuple of strings. So here let's just name the tuple as t2, and in the parentheses we can simply put our strings. Let us be a, here we can type the name of the channel, and string. Now if we print the value of t2, here we can see that we again got our tuple successfully made, and it contains our all elements. Now as we used to do in list, we can also use or access individual elements of a tuple. And how do we do that? We do it with the use of element index. That means, as we used to do in the list, in the tuple also, the element of the tuple are indexed. That means they are given a special number starting from 0. So if we take example of t1 here, tuple t1, so the one, that is the first element, it will be in assigned an index of 0. The second element will be assigned an index of 1. The third element will be assigned an index of 3, and the last element, which is at position 4, will be assigned an index of 4, or sorry, not 4, 3. So in Python, one thing we have to remember, that as I have told in the previous videos of list, that the indexing does not start from 1, it starts from 0. And the way to access the elements in the tuple is very similar to how we used to do in the list. We simply type the name of the tuple, then in the square bracket we give the index of the element that we want to access. For example, if I want to access the third element of the tuple t1, so I will just simply give the index of that element in the square bracket. So here we can see that we have got our desired element. Now simply we can get another element simply by typing the name of the tuple and in the square bracket giving the index of the element that we want to access. So if I want to access the last element of the tuple t1, which is true, I will simply give its index, which is 3. Now if I press enter, here we can see that we have got the value as true. One thing that I quickly want to mention, that while we are working in the console, or that is here, we can simply print or get the value of something just by typing the name of it. For example, if I want to access the third element of tuple t1, I will write the expression and press enter, and I will get it on the screen. But if we are working in the file That means a separate file when we create and write our code. So in order to see the results on the screen, we have to use print statement. For example, if I want that in my program I get printed the value of last element of t1, that is t3, so this expression will not be sufficient to do that. So we have to use print function in order to get the result on our screen. So we will do something like this. Okay, so getting back on the topic, now creating tuples with one element or single element can be sometimes tricky. For example, if I say to you that create a tuple of single element, you will do something like this. T3 equals, then in the parentheses we will simply just type the element, let us be an integer. Now if you press enter, nothing happens. Now if you print the value of t3, so here we can see that we get 4, not a tuple, which is an integer. Or another way to check is that it is not a tuple, we can use type function, that is an inbuilt function of Python, to check the type of a variable. For example, if I say type and t3, here we can see it says class int. That means it is an integer type. So what went wrong? So basically in Python, parentheses are used in expression for evaluation. For example, if I have to write 2 into 3, I can write the same expression in this manner also, that is 2 multiplied by, then in the parentheses 3. Now, so if you just put the parenthesis, Python evaluates it is an expression and it simply removes the parenthesis and stores the integer or the value that we have entered here in the t3 variable, which is an integer in our case. So what we have to do in order to create tuples of single element, it's just to put a comma after the element. For example, if I write t3 equals 4 comma, now if I print the value of t3 now, you will see that it contains the parentheses or round brackets, hence it is a tuple. Similarly, we can check that with the help of the type function also. Now if you press enter, it says class tuple, that means it is a tuple. So that is the thing that we have to keep in mind while creating tuples of single elements. Now there is also a shortcut to create tuples. For example, if you want to create tuple in Python, you can simply do something like this. Type the name of the tuple, then equals to, then just simply start writing your elements. For example, 3, 4, 5, a string, and now if you press enter, the tuple will be created. So here we print the value of t4, we get it is a tuple. This trick also works with single element tuple. For example, if we create another tuple, that is t5, and we just simply say let's just have a string as our element, then after putting the comma, if we press enter and print the value of t5, here we can see that we have got a tuple that contains a character, or we can say string, as its element. Okay, so this is the basics of the tuple. Now we will move to the topic, that is creating tuples from sequences, and we will do it by using tuple function, that is a built-in function in Python. So let's just clear all that we have done here. Now for creating tuple from existing sequences, for example, if you have a list or a string, then you can also create a tuple from them also. For example, if I create a list L here, which contains some random element. Now if I want to have a tuple that contains the same element, how will I do that? I will simply write the name of the tuple, that will be t6 equals to, then I will write the name of the inbuilt function, then in the parentheses I will give name of that sequence that we want to be made of tuple. Now if you press enter and print the value of t6, here we get that we have made a tuple that contains the same element in the same order as our list L has. Now, we can also create tuples using strings. So a string is basically is also a sequence, but it is a sequence of characters. For example, if I create a string and name as string itself, let's just have a name of our channel. Now, if I made a tuple t7 from that string using the inbuilt tuple function, then in the parentheses simply we can give the name of the string, that is itself string. Now if we press enter and print the value of t7, we will get that we have got a tuple that contains elements as each character of the string. That's why, because string is a sequence of characters, that is each character in a string is basically an element of that string. So in the R tuple also, each character will be considered as element of individual element of a tuple. So let's just, for our revision, create we should create another tuple using our tuple built-in function. So let's just create a tuple t8, and but before that we have to create our sequence. That is, in this case we will need a list L1 as 1 3. Let's just try to have some random values str. So here we have our list L1. Now we can create a tuple t9 or t8 having the same element as our list L1 has. So we will use again built-in method or function, the tuple, and we will just simply put the name of the sequence, that is L1, and if we print the value of t8, we can see here that we have got a tuple that contains the same number of elements as our list L1 and in the same order. So this is the way that we can create tuples from existing sequences in Python using tuple built-in function. Now coming to our next topic, that is, what are the similarities between a tuple and a list? So the first similarity is that we can use the length function on both sequences to know their length. That means uh, so first uh, so first of all, let's just create a tuple and a list. So we will have our tuple t as, let's just insert some element in it, 0 a, and the last one be false. That is also a special literal in Python and is also a keyword in Python. Now let's just create a list as L 6 8 9 B and true. Oh, sorry. So here we can see that we have got an error because we started with a square bracket but ended our sequence or our list with a round bracket. So that is an error. So let's just quickly create our list. 6 8 9 B true. Okay, so here we have got our list. Now the first similarity is that we can use len function, that is a built-in function in Python, on both the sequences to know their lengths. For example, if I simply say print len and type the name of the tuple in it and print it, here it says 5. So we can manually check also that our tuple contains basically 5 elements. Now similarly we can do the same thing on a list, that using the len function, and inside the parentheses we have to give the name of the list and then simply print it. Now it also returns 5 since our list also has 5 elements in it. The second similarity is that as I have told earlier, that in both list and tuples the indexing of element is done. That means each element in both the sequences is assigned an element starting from 0. Now coming to the third similarity. So basically there are two types of operators in Python. The first is in and the second one is not in. So as the name suggests, they are basically used to check the presence of a particular element in a list or a tuple. For example, if I say uh, 6 in L, that means we are asking Python whether 6 is in list L or not. If you press enter, here we can see that it returns a value of true. That means 6 exists uh, in our list. Now if I say 99 in L, here we can see it returns false as 99 does not exist in our list. Similarly, we can also use not in. For example, if I say ask to the Python that 9 not in L, so we can already guess the result here, that since 9 is in our list and we are saying Python that 9 not in L, so this statement or expression will result in false. So here is our answer, that is false. Similarly, we can also do similar thing with tuples. For example, if I want to check whether uh, a string named A exists in tuple T or not, here we can see that it is returning as true, because if we look at our tuple T here, the third element, or sorry, the fourth element is the string A. Similarly, we can also use not in operator with tuple. For example, if we simply just check whether true not in T, it returns false, because so now we get basically false. That is weird, because true is not an element of T, but still is returning false, that true not in T, tuple T. So now if we check that true in T, here we can see that although true is not element of T, it's returning true. Now let's just check with it false. If we say false in T, that says true, which is consistent because false is the element of T. Now if we say false in L, which is also consistent because it is false is not element of L, so it should return false, so it returns. So what is the problem with true? So basically I will make a separate video about membership operators. In there I will explain what is the reason behind the weird behavior of the true value or the true boolean literals with the membership operators. Now one thing I want to mention is that while working with operators with strings as element, we have to keep something in mind, that is, if the element that you are searching for, or the part of the element, that means string or the substring of the element that you are basically searching for, it exists in that exists in the tuple or the list, or we can say sequence, then Python will return true. What do I mean by that is that suppose we have a list, or since we are learning about tuples, let's just have a tuple as tup, and let's just give some string. Sorry, by mistake I have pressed enter. Let's just create a tuple quickly. So here we have tuple with 3 strings. Now if I say sad in tup, so it's a return true, nothing to question about. Now if I say SAA in tup, so basically sorry guys, I want to inform you one thing, that the concept that I told here, that if the element that you are searching for example Saad in our first case is in tuple then it will return true. That thing is clear. But the thing that I told, that if our element that we are searching for is part of some string or a substring of the element that is contained in the tuple, that are in case that is SAA is basically a substring of Saad. So then also it will also return false. The concept that I told earlier, that it will return true, is basically not for uh, tuples. It is concept of somewhere else. So sorry for that. Let me repeat the clear concept again. That is, if the element that we are searching for in case of strings the does not match completely with the string that we have in our tuple, in that case also it will return false. That means using substrings we cannot get true as our answer. So since SAA string does not exist in this tuple, and also in spite of the fact that it is also a substring of Saad, it will return false since SAA is not a element of this tuple. Similarly, we can also check that with another example. If I type str in tup, it says false. That means it does not exist in tuple. So this is was comparison of sorry for that, guys. So this is basically about using comparison operators, no, not comparison operators, basically membership operators with tuples. Now, the last similarity is that we can also perform concatenation and replication operation on tuples as we used to do in list. That means we can basically join two tuples using the plus operator and replicate a tuple using asterisk operator or multiply operator as we used to do in list. For example, if I have a, let's just have a example of that tup tuple or tup tuple that we have created. If we write tup plus t, a tuple that we have created basically here. So if we press enter, here we can see that we have got a tuple that contains first the element of the tuple tup and then the element of the tuple t, as in the order we have put them in our expression. And we can also see that the order of the elements are basically same as they were in their individual tuples. So that way we can basically join two tuples using plus operator. Now we can also replicate a tuple using asterisk operator. For example, if we say tup asterisk 3 and we press enter, here we can see that we have got a tuple that basically contains three copies of the original tuple tup. Here we can see that Saad string entries, here is the one tuple, then from again starting from Saad string entries, this is the second copy and this is the third copy of the tuple. So using asterisk operator we can basically replicate a tuple and create a larger tuple creating the copies. Now coming to the last topic, that is what is basically the difference between a tuple and a list. Till now we have seen that basically we have got or we have seen no difference between a tuple and a list. So the difference between a tuple and a list is that lists are mutable and tuples are immutable. That means that we can change a value of a list in place, and that of a tuple we cannot. What do I mean by that? We will understand shortly. So in Python, basically everything that we create is stored at a memory location. For example, the tup tuple that we have created here is basically stored at a specific location in a memory. And to know the address of that memory, we can use id function, that's a built-in function. Then the parenthesis simply give the name of the tuple and press enter. Here we basically we get a number that is basically the memory address of the tuple. Basically, everything, whether it is a variable, it is a tuple, list, string, everything is basically stored somewhere in the memory, has a specific address, and we can know that address by using the id function. So what immutable means is basically, suppose we have a list lst, and let's just simply have three elements here. Now if we see the memory address of lst, here we can see it is some number. Now if we just want to change the value of the second element of the list, we can do it as we have learned in our previous lectures. That is, we will just type the name of the list in the parenthesis, give the index where we want to make the change, and simply assign the new value. So in our case, we will assign it 4. Now the value got changed. If we see the value here, we have our new list as 1, 4, and 5. But if we check the id of our list now, lst, it is basically the same. It has not changed. So if you check, it is basically the same. It has not changed. So it never matters. If we change the element of the list, it will not change its memory address. That is known as changing the value of element in place. That means the place of the list doesn't get changed, and that is only known as immutable. Let me repeat what immutable means. So immutable data type is basically a data type whose value can be changed without changing its memory address. But in the case of tuple, they are immutable. That means if we try to change the value of a tuple, then basically we cannot change the value of a tuple in place. If we try to do so, Python will show an error. For example, the tuple that we have created above as t, let's just have a look at a tuple that contains element 1, 4, 5.0, a, and false. So here, if we try to change, let's just say the third element, it will have an index 2. In spite of 5.0, let's just we want 1.2. Now, if we press enter, here we can see that we get an error because the value of the tuple cannot be changed in place. So if you want that in the third place, you want a value of 1.2, so basically you have to create a new tuple for that. So we simply write t equals 1, 4, 1.2, and then a, and then false. So here we have created a new tuple. But one thing I forgot to show, that its memory address is changed. So let's just again change one more value, but before, let's just have a look at its id. So now the id of this tuple t is something like this. Now if we again change the value, I will just simply create a new tuple 1, 4. Let's just go to the original value, a, false, false. Now press enter. Now we look at the id of the t. Have a look. Now you can see that the id basically changed. So what happened? Basically the tuple that we created here. So basically the tuple t, that is this one that we created earlier, actually got deleted when we created a new tuple with the same name, and a new tuple gets stored or gets generated. So that's why the memory address of the tuple has changed. So basically we cannot change a value of a tuple in place. For that we have to create basically a new tuple, hence changing the memory address of that tuple. This is known as immutable. So let me repeat the definition of immutable. An immutable data type is basically a data type whose value cannot be changed in place. Alright, I think I will end the video here. This was some information about tuples. Hope you liked the video. and I will see you in the second part of the tuples that will be coming next Sunday.